Welcome to Leen on Kindness with Eileen Cosby, a podcast dedicated to spreading kindness, fostering empathy, and eliminating hate, one story at a time. Well, hello, my dear Julie Bean. How exciting it is to be here with you today.
Yes, I am so excited. It is so good to see your face and just reconnect. So what a precious friend you are.
Oh, thank you. And the same to you. And, I just want to share with the audience how it is that you and I have had the privilege of knowing each other for now 22 years, I think it's been.
Get out.
Yeah. Oh, it's been a long time. Well, I'll say this, maybe not 22, maybe more like 19, because this is how Julie and I met. Both of our daughters were in preschool. And in order to get into the preschool, I believe you had to be 3. So they were about 3 years old. And, when you're going in and out of the preschool, you miss people, right? You don't know people. So we're in and out. And one day, Julie had dropped off her daughter, Megan, and I had dropped off my daughter, Mary. And she turned to me and she said, "Are you Mary's mom?" And I said, "Yes, I am Mary's mom." And she said, "Well, thank you for saving me $200 an hour on therapy for my Megan." And I had no idea what that meant. I'm like, "Oh, Mary's making $200 an hour. Well, then this is good." And as it turned out, Julie has a daughter. Her name is Megan. In our family, we call her our Megan because there's lots of different Megans, but this Megan is our Megan. And Megan is a beautiful, beautiful young woman now, but at the time she was a little girl with autism. And I guess Mary was her special friend in school. And we'll talk about that a little bit as we move forward, how the role that Mary played in her early life and what it's like to have a child like Megan in this great big world, in a world that can be sometimes very unkind, but also in a world that can be kind, and the difference that it has made in not only Megan's life, but in her family's life. So with that is how I know Miss Julie. So I want to get started before we talk about Mary and Megan's relationship. I want to start by getting to know a little bit more about you. So Miss Julie, tell everybody, where were you born and raised?
Well, I was born in Tampa, Florida on MacDill Air Force Base because my dad was in the service. And then we moved back. My parents are from Birmingham, Alabama. So we moved back. By the time I was 2, we moved back to Birmingham. And that's where I grew up, went to school, and then didn't leave Birmingham for residence until after my husband and I were married, when we moved to Texas, and then Phoenix, where we met, and then Seattle, and then all the way back to Birmingham.
Oh, okay. Oh gosh, I forgot about the Seattle stint.
Yes. We could go. So.
Right. It's been a minute. So what was Alabama like? Now, for those of you who are listening, you might hear a teeny bit of an accent with Julie. She's been all over the place, but that accent still comes back. So I'm just curious. I don't know. We deal with stereotypes in life, and that's just how it is. Yeah. So when I met Julie and could hear her Southern accent, and I thought, gosh, she sure is nice to be from Alabama. She sure is nice to me. So there you go. I had to scratch that off for thinking that people from Alabama wouldn't be nice to people that look like me. And she was more than nice. So what was it like being raised in Alabama?
I think I had a good childhood. It was hot, which is always hot in Alabama.
Right, and humid.
Humid. It was very, very humid. But we say it's the heart of the Bible Belt, so we say we're being sanctified here on Earth. So, it was good. I grew up, parents that love me, good family support. Actually grew up right next door to my maternal grandparents.
Oh, wow. That's nice.
In a lot of the ways that was idyllic because we ran back and forth between their houses and just to live with them, and have them, although they had separate residences, we were in and out.
You were in and out all the time and pretty much, I'm sure, getting spoiled by your grandparents, right?
Absolutely. And just that multi-generational way of living was really precious, and I think it's a lost art now. People don't experience that as much.
Yes, I totally agree. My husband says it all the time. When he was a young child, he lived in a multi-generational home with his grandparents in a brownstone in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And so, yeah, he had the privilege of having his maternal grandparents and cousins and aunts and uncles all, living in this brownstone. And it's a very wonderful memory for him. So
it really,
I
really
can see what you mean there. So, well, that's great. And so, Julie, now, did you have siblings?
I do. I have 3 older brothers, so I am the youngest of 4 and the only girl.
Oh, okay.
So it was an interesting upbringing, and I survived. So and my brothers are all big guys, and so like even when they would want to play around with me, guys play differently than girls.
Sure.
And I just, the fact that I survived physically was good. They didn't always mean to injure me, but sometimes.
Well, the fact that you're sitting here with us today is almost a miracle, right?
Yes. So it made me resilient.
I bet. So if you can think back, maybe before you even got into high school, or can you think of maybe some experiences that you may have had with people being unkind, whether it was to you, your brothers, your friends, just any experiences, what you may have witnessed with people being unkind?
Yes, I think it's funny that this is a perfect question, because we have been helping my mom clean out her attic, and in that process we've come across some old pictures and some old school yearbooks, and we came across a picture yesterday of me in 3rd grade with the most atrocious haircut ever. And I had like Coke bottle thick glasses, and it was, when they say a face only a mother could love, I was
that was you.
My 2 of my girls were with me, and they saw it, and they're like, "Oh, mom, what a picture."
Wow.
So needless to say, I got teased a little bit. I got teased, as people often do. I was not the beauty queen that I wanted to be at that time. So that was a little hard before I grew into my looks.
Sure. So can you remember what that was like and how you handled that and how you felt?
Well, I think in the beginning, I felt my self-esteem suffered a little bit, because I wanted to be what I saw on TV. I wanted to be, what, the ideal, the expectation.
And what was that? What were you seeing on TV?
It was funny because I had red hair and freckles and glasses, and I was pale white. And I wanted to be either, blonde and, smooth skin, or dark brunette, with even, not pasty white skin. I wanted to be anything but what you were. But what I was, which I think is
pretty common in some ways.
Pretty common, yeah. And so, I suffered a lot from comparison in my mind. And, kids will say things and stuff. And so, I just kind of shrunk down. But then, especially as my older brothers, I was around their friends, and there was always a friend or two who would take notice of me, or whatever, would engage with me. And so
that had to make you feel good, right? Because they were older, they were boys, they were
and girls too. They would talk to me, and they would say, "Oh yeah, I remember that age, and I felt so awkward, and I felt so weird and different." And so it normalized it.
So they gave you some reassurance that it was all going to just hang in there, Julie. You're going to be okay.
Yeah, absolutely. So,
yeah. So what was high school like for you? Were you really active in high school? Did you?
I was medium active. I think I thought this was a fun question, because at the time I would have said, "Oh, I struggled in high school. It was hard for me." But reflecting back, I had a good group of friends. I was involved in choir and theater and different service organizations in high school. So I think I really had a good experience. At the time, I would have said maybe not, but
as you look back.
Yeah, perspective is everything.
Sure.
And I had a good group of friends, but once again, I thought, well, my friends aren't the most popular, and I think maybe I should have more popular friends, or I should be doing this.
So what would that have meant for you to have more popular friends? What would you have thought that would have gotten you in life at that time?
I don't know. I think maybe I was a little boy crazy, so maybe.
Oh,
maybe
you were.
I was, which was odd, and I didn't really date, so I wanted. I wanted to, I think I was really influenced by media. I saw a lot of things
Sure.
in TV and in the magazines, and I thought, well, that's what a high school experience should
It's supposed to be like. And
be
were your
like.
girlfriends dating a lot and you weren't? And
No, not
no,
really.
no.
Yeah, and the ones that did, I mean, it was nothing but drama and tears.
Who wants
Classic high
that?
school relationships.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Well,
So,
we're going to take just a really quick break here.
yes,
And when we come back, let's talk a little bit about when you went to college and what
yes,
happens after that. Okay?
yes.
All right. Okay, Julie, we're back. So you survived high school, and now that you're looking back on it, it wasn't such a bad deal. You got through whatever challenges that you were having with your Coke eyeglasses and your red hair and your pale skin and freckles. So Julie's moving on.
Absolutely.
And now she's in college. So is it in college where you met Tim? Tell me how that all started.
I met Tim 3 months after I graduated from college.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So he was a friend of my brother who was closest to me in age, 2 years older. So they had worked together. And I had a holiday like ball or thing to go to and needed a date. And so my brother set us up. So.
Oh, so wow. Now,
Yeah.
most people don't want to go out with anyone that their siblings even know, let alone you're going to go.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, I mean, how did that even come to play? And
Well, it was kind of funny because in high school, any guy that I liked, my brother did not like. He was like, well, you can do better. You can, you don't need to spend time with him or whatever. You can do better. And one time I got kind of frustrated. I said, well, if you don't like the guys I'm choosing, why don't you pick somebody for me or set me up with somebody to go out with? So about 6 years later, he did. So
took him a minute, but he got the job done.
absolutely, it took a minute. So yeah, so I was in an auxiliary group for the Alabama Ballet here, and they have a ball every Christmas during the Christmas season, and it's a fundraiser. And so I needed a date, and all my guy friends were not available at the time, and so I asked my brother Kenneth. I said, "Is there anybody you could set me up with? I just need a date,
to go be done with it." Yeah.
Didn't mind putting on a tuxedo and all of that. And so he set us up, and then my brother, in classic fashion, I always say it's funny that Tim agreed to go out with me because they were at a sports bar watching the football game, and he said, my sister can't find a date, would you mind going out with her? And so that was how he introduced us.
Oh no. You could have played it up a little bit better than that. Oh, she just can't find a date. So
he could have. And it was funny because we hadn't really met or talked, but we had been in the same event before. So he had seen me. So I guess he knew I was decent. Or liked what he saw or whatever.
Right. Yeah. There was some attraction. There there. Yeah. So you go on the date, and how did then this date turn into a marriage?
Well, I think it was just we clicked immediately.
You did.
It was just I knew, I'd not had a lot of long-term relationships, but I dated on and off in college, for sorority events and stuff, and always had a lot of guy friends, and I think I knew what I was looking for, and all of that. And so when we met, he's a year or two ahead of me, and so I knew what I wanted, and I think he knew what he wanted, and we just clicked.
And you didn't have time to waste.
No, I didn't have time to waste, so we were good, and just hit it off. And so he's been a blessing ever since.
Well,
so.
He most certainly has, and you know how I feel about him.
Yeah.
He is just, his sense of humor just cracks me up. You can talk to him about anything.
Oh, yes.
He is a wonderful husband,
Mm-hmm.
and he is a fantastic father. So you were blessed, just double whammy with that one.
He loves well. He loves his people.
Yes, he does. Yes, he does. Absolutely. So you get married, and like a lot of young couples, you want to plan your family. It's time to think about having a family. So how long was it before you heard those words or saw that test and it said that you were pregnant?
Well, actually, it was about 9 years, which was longer than
9 years. I don't know that I ever knew that.
Yeah. So then we had anticipated when we got married, I was finishing graduate school, and I would have liked to have gotten married, or not married, pregnant pretty soon after finishing graduate school, but Tim wanted to wait, and he's wise, and he's
He
like,
is.
it's been a minute, you've been in school and all of that. So we waited a little bit, and after talking, we thought, well, 3 or 4 years in, we'll start, planning our family. And then about that time, we moved to Texas, which, kind of set things back a little bit, getting established there and everything. And then, a few years went by, and we're like, oh yeah, well, what about the family? And
oh yeah, we were going to have babies. What happened?
Exactly. Yeah. So it took a little longer to get pregnant than we thought, and we were thinking we had some serious fertility issues, which did not turn out to be as serious as we thought. So that was good. And so then we found out we were pregnant with Megan, I think maybe almost exactly a month after 9/11. So
my goodness. Yeah.
Yeah. Which was interesting. And people always assume she's a 9/11 baby
because everyone was closed in, didn't have anything to do.
But we have actually been trying for quite a while. Then, yeah.
So how was your pregnancy? Just a normal pregnancy, was it?
It was very good. After I got over the morning sickness, and I think with all my kids, I was pretty good pregnant. I handled pregnancy pretty well aside from the morning sickness. So it was good. But about 6 months, when I was about 6 months pregnant, Tim was offered a promotion that moved us to Phoenix, Arizona. So we ended up moving to Phoenix when I was 8 months pregnant with Megan.
Oh my goodness. I hope not in the heat, was it?
Oh yes, definitely.
It had to have been when it was a kabillion degrees outside.
It was crazy. But we were living in South Texas. We were in San Antonio, Texas at the time, which is really humid and hot. So I didn't really feel like we were giving up great weather to go to, worse weather.
Yeah.
It was a different kind of hot, but it was still really.
Yeah, it's hot. It's
really hot.
Yeah, I call Arizona Ovenzona.
Absolutely,
because it is hot in the summer. You can't beat it for the majority of the year. It's just beautiful. But in the summer, I wouldn't want to move here in the summer like you did.
Yeah.
So when's her birthday? When was she born?
July 17th.
July 17th.
Yeah.
Wow.
So right in the middle of the heat.
Right in the middle. Yeah. What was that day like for you?
It was an exciting day. So her due date, I think, was maybe close to a week before that. And so in our move, we had been real careful to not, throw me into labor before we got to Arizona. And then when we got there, she wouldn't come. So
she was comfy.
So she was. So we ended up scheduling an induction. And so because she was my first, it took pretty much all day. So she was born right around maybe 10 p.m. or a little bit before 10 p.m. I think she was born on a Wednesday. So,
okay.
And we were so excited and happy. And
of course.
It was just great. We'd waited so long. I felt like I had just given birth to the world's most perfect child.
Well,
absolutely.
And when you know Megan, you know that is absolutely the case.
Absolutely.
That is absolutely the case. So as the months went on, how, when was it that you were kind of suspicious maybe that her development was different than other babies that you knew or what the doctors were seeing, and, what happened there?
Well, with her being my first, if she had been like my second or third child, I think I would have been much more clued into the things. But as my first, I didn't know what I didn't know. And the only thing I noticed with her after she turned 2 was her vocabulary was not progressing the way her peers were, around other kids.
And so like when you were at church or something, you might notice something like that.
Church.
Okay.
And I was in a little little mom play group. And so, the kids, there were several little kids around Megan's age, and they had more words in their more extensive vocabulary than Megan did. Megan always had a few words, but not to the extent. And it seemed to snowball after 2. Like they were just learning words on top of words, and every week they would be talking more and more. And Megan just kind of plateaued.
Sure.
So,
yeah. So then you took her to the doctor to have her evaluated. What made you take the next steps to?
Well, even though I thought her language was a little behind, I didn't really think much of it because I know that some kids are slower to speak.
Yes.
And, talk. And Tim and I both talk a lot, and we thought, well, maybe we did all the talking for her. But,
she doesn't have anything to say.
Exactly, yeah. So, and I was taking care of all her needs because I was going to be the best mom ever because I'd waited so long to have a child.
Yes.
So actually, there was a woman who worked in the nursery at our church, and then at a community Bible group I went to, who was around Megan a good bit. And in earlier years, she had worked as an aide in special needs classrooms. And so she had seen a few things with Megan that concerned her. And so she spoke to me about them. And instead of taking it in the way that she meant it, I was terribly offended and angry about it because I had given birth to the world's most perfect child. And how dare someone imply that something was wrong.
That there might be some challenges, yes.
Yeah. And so, I was like, no, we're fine, but whatever. My parents came out to visit and I mentioned what this woman had said. And finally, my parents said, well, we've seen some of the same things. And once again, I was like, well, fine. No one thinks my baby's perfect. Just fine.
It was really personal to you.
Yeah. So, and my father is a physician. And so, he's like, well, Julie, I know that if you see some concerns or people see things, it wouldn't hurt to get it checked out, just talk to your pediatrician, ask these questions. And that set the ball rolling.
That set it rolling. And so when they did examine her, they did whatever testing that they do. What did they say to you? What was the diagnosis?
Her very first diagnosis, because back to the language thing, they sent us to a speech language pathologist for an assessment. And her first diagnosis was a severe language delay for expressive and receptive language. And so that means, meant she couldn't say what she was feeling and she couldn't quite understand what people were asking her or saying to her a lot of times. And so that was first. And then later that week, we saw a developmental pediatrician, which he said, yeah, we see some markers here that could be of concern. Let's see how it goes. So by the time she was 3, we had a pretty definite diagnosis of autism spectrum. So officially hers is pervasive developmental disorder, not otherwise specified. So which is just on the spectrum.
Okay. So when they say she's on the autism spectrum, that means that there's various different levels and areas of autism, correct? Yeah. Because I think that some people, they hear the word autism and they think that everybody is the same. And so that would explain that there's a various different ranges of autism.
Well, and so like one thing when you think probably the stereotyped autism stereotype, you think of someone who doesn't want to engage and doesn't like people and wants to be off by themselves all the time. And that was really never Megan. Megan was always social. I think that's one way she and Mary connected. Sure. When they were little, she always wanted to connect with people. She didn't always know how, and then, she did
have some words.
Oh yeah. Yes. She always had some words. So, and, but not a lot, and not being able to like really like identify an emotion and express it, and stuff, which got to be a problem later, later on, and things that we worked on. And she's good at that now. But, it looks, one thing about autism, it looks different in everybody. And it looks different in girls than it looks in boys a lot of times. And, everyone experiences it differently. They have their strengths, they have their weaknesses, they have things they can't do, things that bother them. Megan was sensory driven for a long time, so which helped when we got a handle on that. And so it's so
with the children being in all different ranges and how it affects them, then it affects families in all different types of ways, because they're the ones that are raising her and being around her. But one of the things I think that maybe some of the families have in common is how people react to a child with autism. And I would like for you to share some of the maybe ways that people have reacted to you that you just couldn't believe, that were people who didn't understand, and how that feels when people are unkind to you with your child when they can't help the way that they are, and the reactions, that some of the things that you went through with that.
Yes. Well, I can remember when Megan was little, still in a stroller, and I took her into a store and she was having a hard time and struggling. And so I left the store, obviously, because she was, getting loud. And this woman followed me out of the store to yell at me about bringing Megan out in public, and told me that I had a lot of nerve to bring a child like that out in public, and just lit into me. And I just I didn't even have the ability to fight back. I just kept walking. I was just like definitely flight, my flight
Trying
mode.
to zoom it to your car. So she took the time to follow you out of the store. I mean, it's bad enough that she would maybe say anything to you in the store, but she followed you out as to intimidate you?
Out of the store. Yeah, she was so mad at me. So mad at the situation. So, and
was she trying to give you parenting experience? What was she?
The only thing Megan was doing was crying. She was upset. And
a lot of kids get upset when they're in the store, whether they have autism or not.
Yeah. So,
wow, that's amazing. A grown woman. I'm always amazed when I talk to people about, a time when maybe they were not treated well or, unkind or their kids or whatever. When I find out that it's the adults, that an adult would do something so awful as that.
Yes, I kept thinking, and she was at least in her 60s, if not 70s. From what I remember,
unbelievable.
You were old enough to know better, So, so that was, and I had a couple of other experiences like that. I can remember a couple of times a woman would say, "Well, she just needs a good spanking, or she just needs, or whatever," not knowing that Megan, had special needs or anything, but
not even bothering to even try to understand that there might be something,
not even to see the situation.
You were talking, we had just finished talking about the woman that followed you out to the store, and then you had another experience that you were sharing. Do you remember?
People would say, "Well, she just needs a good spanking," or "Why can't she manage your kid better?" Or whatever, and not knowing anything of our situation. And I think also I need to say I had two other kids very quickly after I had Megan. So my girls are like less than 3 years apart, and so at that time, I was just trying to survive. I was trying to keep all of us alive. And so I was kind of the easy touch, like I was upset easily. I was always apologizing or felt like I should be apologizing.
My goodness. Yes. Just keep everything kind of easy for you, just to not say anything. But your feelings must have just been torn to pieces.
I spent so much time crying and all of that. And, you were really part of teaching me to fight back or telling me to stand up. Because I remember we had been out. I don't even remember the situation, but something had happened. And I came over because Megan was with y'all, and I came over and told you what happened. And you said, "No, that's not acceptable. That's not how we act. That is not what people do." And you told me the next time something like that happens, you say this, and this. And it was great. I think, you had been a mom longer than I had, so you had more mom experience, but you were like, "No, this is not normal behavior. That's not.
It's just not what we do. It's just not."
Yeah, it's not. And, I started thinking, yeah, she's right. That's not how, no, that's not.
Well, I'm so glad that I could have a part in your life of being kind, because that was a question that I was going to ask you is, I know you've had these awful experiences with people being unkind and, how that affected you and your family. But also, I'm sure you've had some experiences of people that have loved you and kind of loved you through this and have been kind. And, what the difference that made in your life when people did take the time to understand what your situation was and how they could be helpful instead of hateful.
Yes. And I am happy to say that I have many more examples of kindness than I do of the unkindness.
That's great.
And I think part of God's mercy is that I remember the kindnesses more than the bad experiences. So, and I think it even starts with that first woman who mentioned her concerns about men.
Yes, that was certainly out of love than it was anything else.
After, I remember her name is Joan. Now, after I got through being mad at her, finally I talked to her and I said, I really appreciate you mentioning your concerns. I said, I don't think I expressed that at the time because I was really mad at you. And she said, "Sweetheart, I know." And she was originally from New York or New Jersey and was away from her family. And she said, "I thought about my daughters and my grandkids. And I thought about you being so far away from your family and what I would want someone to do for my girls if I wasn't."
The whole treat others as you would want to be treated.
Exactly. And so that was, it was really, and, it was really a brave thing that she did because, she didn't have to. She could have kept quiet. But, and aside from that, I think I had a couple of friends who just really stood beside me. One of my friends, Wendy, that I went to church with, she had another friend with a son on the autism spectrum and really wanted me to talk to her. And I was like, no, I just want to be alone. I want to talk about it. And she just pestered me and finally connected us. And I didn't know anybody else with a kid on the spectrum. And when I talked to this woman, it just really relieved a lot of my burden. And it was so healing. And I didn't think it would be. And, if she hadn't pushed and tried to help and all of that, I wouldn't have had that first relief. And it kind of put me in contact with some other resources and stuff that I needed. And then you and your family, especially after we connected, I think one thing that you did, and Wendy and one or two other people, y'all just walked beside us in where we were in our journey. And, y'all didn't have any experiences with special needs. Y'all didn't know any more about autism than I did, and y'all probably knew less. And y'all just like, well, we don't have the answers. And I wasn't asking for answers. I just didn't want to be alone. I already felt far away from my family anyway, but you're like, we're here. What do you need? And you remember the play date with Mary, because Mary would always come over and play with us. And you remember Mary decided that it was time for Megan to come over for a play date. And I'll never forget, you called me and you said, Julie, I got to talk to you. Mary wants Megan to come over, and I would love to have her, but I'm concerned because Megan couldn't express herself at that time. And you said, Mary assures me that she can handle this, that she can take care of Megan. And you were the very first person who talked to me about your concerns about Megan, which of course, I mean, if I was in your position, I would have had those concerns. Having a child who can't talk, and all of that. And I said, well, I think Mary's right. I've seen Mary handles Megan a lot better than I do.
I remember. I mean, Mary just took over. Megan came over that day, and she just took over. And from that point on, we never worried about it ever again. Oh. One of my favorite memories of that first play date, because I think it was Megan's first play date, wasn't it, that she'd ever had away from home?
Yeah.
And David was at work. And he came home, and Megan was in the corner with herself doing what Megan did. And David was just like, okay, now what is going on? And he just didn't know what to say. And he came over and he goes, okay, is everything okay? Like, do we need to be doing anything? And Mary goes, Megan's fine. Megan is doing fine. Like she was looking at her dad like, no, what's wrong with you? because Megan is fine. And so from that point on, David's like, okay, they seem like they know what they're doing. And we never thought twice about it ever again.
Absolutely. And Mary she was like one of the first people to call Megan out, because I remember they were at our house for a play date and Megan was not sharing. And Mary got in her face, took her little jaw, chin in her face and said, Megan, I am trying to play with you and we are going to sit here and play together. And this is what you do on a play date. Oh. And it's like, okay.
And Megan listened.
Absolutely.
Megan listened. That was something that I noticed. Mary was, she would take Megan's chin up like this and just look at her right in her eye. Absolutely. And just talk to her. If they were getting a picture taken and Megan wasn't looking in the camera, Mary would take her chin and point her in the direction. It's just like she was just born to know this is what I do. This is the way I take care of my friend.
Absolutely. And I think if we go back through our camera rolls, we have a lot of pictures with Mary's hand on Megan's chin pointing it toward the camera. It's like, look at that way. And so, it was just a blessing for y'all. I didn't feel like I had to like polish us up or make us look right or act right. Y'all took us as we were. And, and I've shared this with you before, when I would talk to you about Megan and my fears and my concerns, you would say, well, that's not going to be our Megan. Our Megan's going to do this, or our Megan's going to do that. And it didn't really connect with me at the time. I mean, you were speaking life into me, which was great. And then later on in reflection, I thought, she always says our Megan when she talks about Megan. And, it was so inclusive, and it was just so accepting and so warm. And, even though I'm going to tear up, even though you were saying our Megan, you were saying you're not alone, you're loved, Absolutely. We see you, you're here, and all of that. And it was I was like, once again, we were fighting so hard to survive. It didn't connect at the time, but, months and years later, it does. It has meant everything. Well,
and your family has meant the world to us. And Megan's Megan's existence in this world has made such a positive difference in our lives. We will never forget it. We don't ever forget her. She's always in our thoughts and in our hearts, and we love her. We love your family. We always will. And what I would love for the audience to know now is, tell us about Megan now. Tell us how our Megan is doing.
Well, our Megan is a working woman now. She has, we discovered early on that school was not going to be her thing, So she got through high school, and we survived. And she did a college experience program, and then she did a job training program, and then worked with a job coach to find a good job. So her first job was not the best fit, but now she is working at Chick-fil-A, about 2 miles from her house, and she is like a hostess.
So great.
She brings people their food, cleans their table, refills drinks, and all of that. And Megan is very social.
I was just going to say, she must be very social.
Oh, yes. She has a whole fan base that comes to Chick-fil-A to see her. And so it's in the neighborhood where we grew up. It's where she went to school. And so a lot of her friends from school will come by and see her. A lot of the families come by, and they'll tell Megan who they are, remind her who they are, or they'll text me, or I saw Megan at work today, and all of that. So
that's so great. She's a working woman. That's my girl.
I know.
That is my girl.
She's like, chicken sales are up today, Mom. Chicken sales are up. So.
That's great. That is great.
Yeah, so she's doing well. She loves movies. She loves Pokemon. She loves cheeseburgers and ice cream. So, she's just living,
I cannot wait to see her again and just put my arms around her. And she's had such a wonderful home experience. Her sisters have always been so supportive and loving. Of course, you and Tim are creme de la creme. There's just no doubt about it. And I would like to close our time with some advice from you. And that advice would be, what would you say to people to help them to understand some of the things that they could do in this world to promote kindness and belonging, of course, and eliminate hate? What would be some of your words of wisdom to our audience, given what you've been through, the beautiful outcome that you've had with your daughter, that they could do, how they can make a contribution?
Ooh, that's a good question. So I asked my other two girls this question too, to get their input, and they said, "Mom, you always said growing up it literally costs nothing to be kind," and I think that's true. Offering a little bit of grace, understanding to people, whether you know the whole story or not. I think one thing, and this is something we talked about, was having a child with special needs. And Megan's special needs are invisible a lot of times. You don't look at her and see anything that would denote that. And so sometimes her behavior doesn't match up with that. And so always assume there's more to the story than what you're seeing on the outside. There's a whole could be a whole other history, whole other thing going on. So assume you don't know all the story, and offer grace and where you can, and understanding.
That is absolutely perfect. When I think of all the judging that goes on as a result of people not even knowing, you decide that you know everything about people, and you don't know anything about people. That's just one of my biggest pet peeves. So when you know, you can do better, as we've heard Maya Angelou say so many times. That's a quote that we all love and should live by. When you know better, then you can do better. And the only way that you can know better is by asking the questions and not judging, and like you said, giving grace. Perfect advice, especially from someone like you who has been through what you've been through. I just appreciate you so much, Julie. I can't even tell you. I'm so glad that we had this time together.
I appreciate you so much. And I know a few years back I shared, how much those things you said and did for us when we were early, and it meant to you. And, I don't know that you knew the impact until that time, just like you're because y'all are a kind family. You're a loving family, and it really goes a long way. You impact people more than you think you do when you share those kindnesses, and it was a lifeline to us at the at the time, and
Thank you,
just
Julie.
being with us, and and that has enabled me to share that kindness with other families, going through the same thing,
Yes.
to be a lifeline to them as well. And in many ways it redeems a little bit of what I thought I lost.
Oh,
So
that's so great to hear, because
yeah.
kindness is contagious. And I say that probably in just every single one of my
Absolutely.
podcasts. It is
Yeah.
contagious. So I hope that who's ever watching today, that you will take a little bit of this, allow it, allow the contagiousness to catch on to you, and go out today and do something kind. And with that, Julie, I just want to thank you again. I love you. Thank you so much for being here.
I love you. Thank you. And it's such a pleasure to see your beautiful face.
You too. And call me when you get here, or before you come, so we can make plans.
We'll make the plans.
Okay.
We'll make the plans.
God bless. Bye-bye.
Bye.